Happy Victory Monday, Cowboys fans. Tom Downey here. Stone Shields behind the scenes for today's live show. We'll be here all the Mondays after the Sunday games and the bye weeks for the Dallas Cowboys, breaking down what we saw, what's to come for America's team after a very strong Week 1 performance, going on the road as the underdogs against one of the better defenses we assume in football. They certainly were last year and didn't really lose any major key pieces. A quality win for the Dallas Cowboys. So grade the Cowboys against the Browns. A, B, C, D, or F. I don't think it was perfect. I think there's still things that this team can improve on, can get better with. But overall, I thought it was a good showing out of Dallas. So A or B is totally fine for me. I assume whoever is voting D or F is actually a Browns fan. And they're just triggered by stuff. Like, you took care of business against a team that should be a playoff contender. You were underdogs on the road. We don't, and this is more for big media, we don't get to do the whole like, oh, they were on the road and the Browns aren't actually good after most analysts picked the Browns to win. Can't have it both ways. Got to pick one. They were good or bad going in. Everyone thought they were good going in. Cowboys still beat them. So A or B as far as I'm concerned. I think that there are elements of the offense I think need to be better. There were still misplays on defense too, but if I told you guys Cowboys win 33-17, we've been like, awesome, where do I sign? So I can't go lower than a B. I think there are still question marks. You got to get organized and figured out. But overall, it was good. It was good. That's a really good defense you played, especially in pass coverage. I think they took care of business. Can't be mad at a double-digit win when you were almost a field goal underdog. Like that was good. Room to be better, sure. But that was a good win. So I can't get on with the C. Like 3% voting C, 1% voting D or F. I'm not going lower than a B. We're going to go A, that's fine too. It's good. It's a good game. Like Fargate says Cowboys got to play great in the playoffs on games. That's fine too. To an extent, this stuff doesn't matter as much. No one cares if they go 9-6 or win 13 games. Depends on what they do in January. So I am actually totally fine with that mindset. I am going to enjoy the ride along the way, though. Only get a few months of this regular season football. So I will enjoy it as it happens. But yes, it does matter a lot more about the playoffs, and I'll feel better about that when they prove to me that they can do it. So they handled their business on the road. I don't think the offense played that great in the second half. I thought they were good in the first half. They very much slowed down in the second half of action. But we'll get to some more questions for you guys and, of course, the entirety of today's show. But first, it's all made possible by our good friends over at Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. Today's show also made possible by our good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, it's just you against the numbers. Pick more, pick less. 2 to 6 player stat projections come out on top. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS over on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Jake Ferguson has a sprained MCL and a bone bruise. That is the injury update from earlier this afternoon. Sounds like he could still play in week 1 now, or week 2. I don't know if that's the best course of action, though, for the Dallas Cowboys. So would you play Jake Ferguson this week coming off the bone bruise and the sprained MCL against the Saints? Y for yes, N for no. I vote no. Sprained MCLs can become worse. If this were the playoffs, different conversation. If this was week 17, maybe a different conversation. Week 2, you can't win a Super Bowl in September. You can't win playoff games in September. You can lose playoff games in September with injuries and making things worse. So I would not put Jake Ferguson out there in week 2. I would be cautious. I'd sit on it. If he can get a limited session in, okay, that's great. Maybe bodes well for week 3. But Big Mike's a very cautious guy when it comes to injuries overall. I would not play him. Maybe you get John Stevens back, maybe. And if you don't, maybe you're calling up Princeton Fant. I have to bank a lot on Luke Schoonmaker there, but I probably would not play Jake Ferguson this week. The Super Chat menu is as follows. $20 for a shot, $50 for a beer bong, $100. It's the bong, slap, and shot combination. $500 as we do the entire season, custom Cowboys jersey of your choosing. You pick the name, the number. I'll wear it throughout the year. Waiting on Anthony's to arrive. Hopefully it arrives soon. Frustrated it is not yet. Most hundreds in September, full-sized Cowboys helmets. Anthony has the narrow lead. Sorry, Jacko actually has the lead on that front over Anthony McMillan and Vanquish Time. We'll see how things change as the year goes on, but that is today's Super Chat menu. Who you got in week 2? C for the Cowboys, S for the Saints. Let me know in the comments of today's video. Week 2 matchup. Saints played pretty darn well. They were much better than what I thought they were going to be. I thought they had a pretty good performance, all things considered. But who you got? C for the Cowboys, S for the Saints. Looked like the Supers might not have been pulling properly there with that graphic. Was it messed up? It looks wrong is what it looks like there. So I'd say slack Chris if you need him to. Who do you got? C or S? Saints played great. Yeah, that's just definitely just not right. That's never what it's looked like. Craig Nunn says C. Bryce says C. Jeff says C. Cobra Rob, William Cook, Terrence Atkins, Dale Weathers, MHDZ, Joseph Ian Torres says C. Brian Hayes says Carr going down. I got trauma over that Raiders playoff game with Derek Carr doing his stupid underthrown DPI crap. Hopefully that doesn't happen again today. I'll be very frustrated if it does happen. Or I guess Sunday, not today, obviously. Jonathan says C, Elite Gamer, Ragnarok Howe, Michael Dion, Noah Turner, Courtney Cole, Noah Turner, Gentry 85, Arthur. All C's in the comments section. They're 6.5-point favorites. We will preview that Week 2 matchup as part of today's live show. And if you want us to start today's live Cowboys Report, then simply like the video. The goal was always that 50% like ratio. The offer still stands. If we get that that 50% like ratio before anything comes in, before I ask for the likes, I'll do a shot. 68 versus 300 plus watching live. Math was not mathing on that front. So like that video if you haven't already done so. I want to get to at least 100 likes here before we start today's live show. We're at 87 likes right now. That's not even a third of our live audience. 87. Next update. Let's see what it jumps us to. 96. We're close. 4 away. 4 away. We need 4 more likes, then we'll get to Abja Pawar's super chat. Next update should get us there. Come on. 106. There it is. $5 for chat from Abja Pawar. Let Dak deal. Was the game call conservative because Mike McCarthy doesn't trust the new offensive line and pass protection? I think that was part of it. I also think they went in knowing, hey, we have a rookie offensive tackle and a rookie center against Myles Garrett and a really good defense. So I actually don't have that many complaints on how they rolled the pocket a little bit. I think they very much took their foot off the gas on offense in the second half of games. The second half of the game. I don't think that they were trying to push the ball the same way they maybe should have. It would have been really nice to have that like a long, sustained drive on the ground, like where they ran it right down the Browns' throat. It never really happened. Don't think the run game was much of a liability, but it wasn't a overwhelming positive the same way like the defense was. Like the offense wasn't bad, but they didn't carry it through for an entire game. So they definitely went conservative second half. Like Dak was on pace for kind of close to 300 yards of offense. Like he wasn't that far behind, like 275, whatever it was at the half. But they also missed the drive because Cavante Turpin got a score and on a return, which is great. Like I think they went conservative. That's fine for week 1. Just can't do it in every game, you know? Coming up on today's live show, we got Cowboys rumors and news. That includes a Jake Ferguson injury update. I want to spend time on one position group that I thought really shined in impressive fashion in week 1, which I think bodes very well for you moving forward. We'll have a mailbag. 2 ways to get on the show, hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to skip that line altogether. Hashtag Cowboys is how you get in the queue. The Super Chat means we'll at least give you a shout out no matter what. And we'll preview Cowboys versus Saints. All coming up live here on the Cowboys Report. We are just 22 subscribers away from 194K here on the Cowboys Report. We almost got there in our Week 1 matchup. Maybe we would have if it wasn't such a blowout in favor of the Cowboys. We'll be live on Mondays, Thursdays, and every Cowboys game day. So if you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed. We begin, as we did this morning's show, with a Jake Ferguson injury update. A sprained MCL and a bone bruise in his knee against the Browns is what Ferguson suffered. That is not a season-ending injury. Now, Ian Rappaport says he's probably going to miss time. Todd Archer says not so fast, my friends. Jake Ferguson could still play against the New Orleans Saints after being diagnosed with a bone bruise and a minor sprain of the MCL, I'll not use the medical terms, in his left knee against the Browns, according to a source. So all things considered, I think that's a win. That's a lot better than, he tore his ACL, he's out for the year, and now you don't have a proven tight end, and you're kind of very worried about your secondary pass catchers beyond CeeDee Lamb. It is a potential notable loss for at least a few weeks. Jake Ferguson, if he doesn't play, probably puts more pressure on Luke Schoonmaker to step up, the second-round pick out of Michigan. Brevin Spann-Ford played a pretty good amount last week, and we'll see if John Stevens Jr. can get healthy. Schoonmaker and Spann-Ford, probably still more blockers than anything. Of note was the tight end snap count. Now, I'm going to put Hunter Lipke on here because 12 of his snaps came at not fullback, either in line, in the slot, out wide, as kind of an H-back type of player. The way Mike McCarthy's offense, he said this before, works, he buckets fullback and tight end together. Lipke played some tight end in this game. Now, that's not to say he's going to be out there running routes and stuff, but is worth mentioning. Luke Schoonmaker and Brevin Spann-Ford both played 19 snaps apiece. More so in heavy personnel look, which Mike McCarthy likes to utilize. But if Ferguson is out week 2, those guys are going to have to play a bigger role. Plus, who knows in the end about John Stevens' hamstring injury. So with the apparent possibility that Jake Ferguson could play in week 2, would you play him? Y for yes, N for no. I want you guys to sound off for me at the pinned comment of today's video. That ad comes here on YouTube. It's just fine. Take advantage of it. Head down there. Would you play him? Y for yes, N for no. Speaking of dudes you played, how about the rookie offensive linemen? That is Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe. I want to spend the time kind of going through some more takeaways from week 1 after getting the All-22, which much improved this year, by the way. Very happy about that. Let's start with Guyton. Up and down. Only allowed 2 pressures. Didn't have the best run blocking grade. I think there were some missed assignments, missed opportunities on some runs that didn't go very long that you can certainly blame to an extent on Guyton and the offensive line. The one thing I want to see get changed from Tyler Guyton, and you saw it a couple times in week 1, when he messes up, he drops his head and tries to headbutt the defensive lineman. Now, he's so athletic, he's able to recover, but as he fixes that flaw in his technique, he's going to be even better. Cooper Beebe, meanwhile, our friendly dirt napper, played pretty well. No sacks, no hits, no hurries, a 71.6 run blocking grade. Thought there was one play that he was kind of like, Dak was clapping to get the snap off, and it didn't happen late in the game, which is worth mentioning. But we weren't calling out their names a lot. There was 2 reps really where Guyton just got smoked by Myles Garrett. It's going to happen. Against the level of defense you were playing, I think that was a pretty good look at what you got. I think you're pretty pleased with how those first-year players performed. Who do you think was better in week 1? TG for Tyler Guyton, CB for Cooper Beebe. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I do think for the most part, the Cowboys tried to protect their offensive line. They tried to move the pocket a little bit more than what we'd seen in years past. It's a good Browns front. I think they were aware of that going in. I think it was a no Chaz Green game plan, which is a good thing, by the way. By the way, I also thought both Ezekiel Elliott and also Rico Dowdle were very solid in pass protection. Dowdle actually graded out higher. I think that might be because there was one rep where Zeke should have been flagged for holding. It's fine, who cares? It didn't get called. That doesn't count. 7 pass protection reps for both guys, 0 pressures allowed. Both those guys, historically, especially Dowdle last year, have done a pretty good job in pass protection. That helps your offense out in a pretty big way. It's the reason why Deuce Vaughn wasn't out there on those plays, right? So I liked what I saw out of both Zeke and Dowdle in that area. Today's show is made possible by Rocket Money. Did you know that most Americans think they spend about $62 a month on subscriptions? The actual number is closer to $300. That is thousands of dollars a year, half of which you might have forgotten about. That's why I love Rocket Money. They can find the subscriptions that you've forgotten about and make your life a little bit easier. It is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps lower your bills, all that you can grow your savings. You have full control over your subscriptions and a clear view of your expenses. You can even just upload your bill, and they will try to negotiate to lower it for you, sometimes by up to 20%. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. One group that I thought impressed me, by the way, overall, was the play of your starting corners. Trayvon Diggs, Carson, and Jordan Lewis, I thought all played really well for you against the Cleveland Browns. Let's go player by player here. Jordan Lewis, I think, is back to being one of the more underrated players on your Cowboys roster. Not only was he impactful in the run game, he was awesome in coverage. Now, you might say, Tom, he allowed 4 catches on 5 targets. So, if it's for 14 yards and none of them go for first downs, you did your job. Might not have been these splashy, sexy pass breakups, but Jordan Lewis stuck his nose into the football a bunch. I was very impressed with what we saw out of Jordan Lewis. Trayvon Diggs, welcome back, my friend. 6 of 9, nice, on completions allowed against targets. Just 23 yards. None of them went for first downs. Had 2 pass breakups, one of which was a pick. Welcome back to football, Trayvon Diggs. I thought he played really well, and I thought for a 5th-round pick, Carson held his own. 5 of 9 in coverage. Now, more yards, more first downs allowed here. Did allow the touchdown on a pretty nice quick out by the Browns. Also broke up 2 passes. Carson was around the football a lot in a positive way. I was very, very impressed by him. I was super impressed by Jordan Lewis and Trayvon Diggs. For what you got out of week 1, not a lot I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, you got to be way better. They're like, no, you were great on defense. Now, look, the Browns' offense was bad. Deshaun Watson is just not very good. Very funny part of my take conversation where Big Cat suggests that Deshaun Watson is now so bad at football, he might be a better person, which is just hilarious. But that does not take away from how great Dallas was. You know, it takes 2 to agree to a contract. There's 2 sides to a football field. Cowboys defense absolutely deserves some credit here as well. I thought they played a very strong game overall in the secondary. We'll talk about the linebackers later on this week. I thought they also played super well. So what is your confidence level right now in this Dallas Cowboys defense? Your scale is 1 to 10. 1 obviously on the low end, 10 on the high end. It's only been a game. You don't want to overreact, but it's a decent day to do it if you're going to. Confidence level in that Cowboys defense. Scale it for me from 1 to 10. Let's talk Mazi Smith's play. Look, I want to mention him because it's a big name. It's a big conversation to have. I don't know how much we're going to glean and gather out of Mazi Smith's play. 5 run defense reps on 23 total snaps per PFF. There's some fun new filters on the NFL's Game Pass, the All-22, that allow you to filter by downs. Only had 4 run stops, so there might have been a play that got confused somewhere. It was nothing going on there. There was one play I thought he didn't have a great rep on that rundown. Everything else was really good. Wasn't getting turned, was taking on the blockers. When your run defense plays great and your linebackers are around the football a lot, near the line of scrimmage, I think that means your defensive tackles did a good job. Now, there weren't that many run plays early in the game for Mazi Smith to be out there, but for a small sample size, I thought it was all pretty good. I think that he held the line well. He did his job, what he's asked to do on the All-22. There was one pressure. It wasn't much of an impact in the passing game. That's okay when everybody else did it. Again, that probably means he's doing his job with what he's asked to do. So, small sample size, but a good first step, I think, for Mazi Smith. Ecuador man AOG, good game, but the running game is still really bad. I wouldn't say they were really bad. I think our expectations going in were very low, and I think that helps us feel better about what we saw out of the ground game. I also think you got to 100 yards on really what amounts to 24 carries. Let's ignore the one kneel down there. You know, the numbers might not look as good if it wasn't for CeeDee Lamb getting 3 carries for 25 yards. I think that's good to do. You should do that. You should use Devontae Turpin in some of those angles as well. But I think there is room for growth on everything on the offensive side of the ball. The one thing I would have loved to have seen from this, 2 things really. Number one, I would have loved to have gotten some more just like sustained drives thanks to the ground game. You know, you had explosive run by Rico Dowdle for 10 yards, a nice 9-yard run by Zeke, capped off. That touchdown run was great. I tweeted out the photo. There is a 2-gap hole right in the middle of that Browns defense. That was great run blocking. Week 1, first real game for a lot of those players. I think it's going in the right direction. I still think you're lacking juice. That's why I like getting CeeDee Lamb involved there. So I don't know if it was a bad game, but I do think there's still room for improvement. There are going to be a lot of games where, you know, if it's 10 for 40 and 8 for 26 from your backs, that might not be good enough. But yeah, week 1. It's fine. Aubrey Pawar, was Dak's performance worthy of $60 million a year? No. That's also probably not the game you needed him to be the MVP, the way I thought you were going to. He took care of business. He did his job. You know, he didn't have any massive issues. There were no turnovers. He took care of the football. They played it conservatively and smart down the stretch. I need to see more plays on third down. Kind of reminded me of last year's like Jets and Giants games. Where like, the offense wasn't that great, but everything else was so good it was okay. So I think there's still room to be better out of Prescott, but you know, he's got $1 million more guaranteed dollars than Deshaun Watson did. Browns have a quarterback issue. Dallas does not. Elmatic 7, Dak got paid. He's our QB. Everyone get over it. The one nice part about Dallas paying Dak Prescott 3 hours before the game was that the discourse got cut down time-wise. Now there's football to talk about. There's games to talk about. So, grade the Cowboys, speaking of for me, against the Browns. A, B, C, D, or F. A narrow race between A and B. I don't have any major complaints. I think that's fair. 46% say A, 50% say B. 3% say C. Someone voted D or F, and I don't know how. Cowboys won that game, what really amounts to 33-10, because it was a garbage time score by the Browns. Gotta be a B at minimum for me. So B, A, B, B. You know, they started slowly on that first drive on offense was bad. That was a bad start to the game. You're right there, NXT. That was you pick up a couple of nice yards on a 5-yard Zeke run with a nice little hurdle, holding, and then you take a sack where Zach Martin just got beat. Bad rep from Zach Martin. Now you're in 2nd and 27. You're kind of cooked at that point. There's not much you can do. And they have a punt that only goes 42 yards, 20-yard return that they get a field goal. And then the Browns truly did nothing on offense until there was, half of the third quarter left. And then everything looks great. By that point, it was 27-3. It's perfect. Elmatic 7, what a difference a group of linebackers makes for a defense. The Cowboys were kind of like, we're going to play cover 2. We'll disguise it sometimes, we won't. They played a lot of too high, and Deshaun Watson had zero answer for it. Also, Overshown looked awesome. We'll come back to them in a second, by the way. 11 from heaven. I'm worried for the defense. They did this last year, but as everybody knows, by mid-late season, they crumbled. I rated a 6. That's trauma speaking, and it's valid. It's valid to feel that way. Because last year they opened the year as like the best defense in football, top 3 defense, whatever. By the end of the year, they were outright bad down the stretch. Now, I do think having linebackers that aren't 215 and intelligent football IQ guys is going to help in a pretty big way. But I totally get the concerns there. In many ways, it is this is great, let's enjoy the ride, only matters in January. That is a very valid opinion to have. A reminder of today's Super Chat menu. $20 for a shot, $50 for the beer bong, $100 bong, slap, and shot combo, $500 a custom Cowboys jersey of your choosing, and the most hundreds in September, it's a Cowboys helmet, full-sized Cowboys helmet. So get those Super Chats in. We'll do a mailbag here in a second after the next segment on today's show. Good news, everyone. Let's reset this because this needs to be me left. So we'll go ahead and reset that. It's not quite the graphic I had in mind there. So you guys can grade the Cowboys against the Browns A, B, C, D, or F as we reset. Let's get that's not supposed to have Cowboys background, so you're right. You're good. You're good. Good news, everyone. The play of this position group in particular, I think bodes very well for the Cowboys defense as a whole. Last year, they began the year hot, but they very much cooled down and struggled as the season went on, and by the end of the season, they were kind of a bottom 5, bottom 10 defense in many of the key position and statistical areas. Now, if you want more breakdowns like the one we're about to do, kind of focused on what happened last week, different position groups, different players, then share today's video for me. Social media, Twitter, or I guess X, Facebook, Instagram, text it, whatever. Share today's video on social media. You might have guessed what we were doing based on how the game went. I was very happy, though, with the play of the linebackers in Week 1 against the Cleveland Browns. It is a new-look, overhauled linebacking core that really features one player back from last year's team. That was Damone Clark. And he went from being the team's number 1 linebacker, having to do so much when it comes to getting things set, to not having to do that stuff anymore. Eric Kendricks, DeMarvion Overshown, Buddy Johnson was a scratch. They played Nick Vigil a lot. More on that in a second. But this revamped linebacking core with some actual size and still speed, I was very impressed by in Week 1. The snap counts from the first game of the year. DeMarvion Overshown had 44, but I thought he played great. Eric Kendricks had 51 before leaving with dehydration. They then plugged Nick Vigil in his spot, which I was kind of surprised by. Damone Clark played 26. Maurice Liufau only played 9, but I thought he was pretty good when he was out there. So let's break down all 5 of these players, beginning with DeMarvion Overshown, who I thought was simply fantastic. 11 tackles in 44 snaps, by the way. That is an elite ratio. Every 4 plays, there's DeMarvion Overshown making the tackle again. That sack he had where he just exploded and crashed in on Deshaun Watson so much faster than what Watson was expecting was wildly impressive. He had a tackle for loss as well. In coverage, the numbers say 7 of 7 for 71 yards. The vast majority of that came on that big David Njoku play, which was partially Overshown's fault. That's really more on Donovan Wilson. Donovan Wilson should have not taken out Overshown on that play and just made the tackle. He kind of went for the ball and misjudged it a little bit. But only 2 first downs. I think that matters in coverage as a linebacker. If you allow a bunch of underneath stuff, I don't care. But if it's 3rd and 5 and you allow a 3-yard completion, who cares? Overshown, simply put, was everything I was hoping he was going to be in Week 1. He looked fast. He looked decisive. He read his keys well. He hit the holes properly. He played awesome. If you value PFF grades at all, he was number 1 on the Dallas Cowboys in Week 1. And number 2, as of Monday Night Football, among all off-ball linebackers, behind only Logan Wilson of the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought he was awesome in this game. And that, I think, is such good news for Dallas. That the stuff we saw in the preseason the last 2 years looks like it's carrying over into real games that matter. So what is your confidence level right now in DeMarvion Overshown? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. It is the pinned comment, by the way, on today's video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Next up is Eric Kendricks. Now, get that guy an IV. I don't know. It wasn't that hot in Cleveland. I'm a little surprised there was some dehydration issues. Either way, it was fine. That game was kind of over. 9 tackles, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, and an interception. That is stuff in the stat sheet in every way you could ever possibly want. Kendricks was all over the field, making a ton of plays for the Cowboys. Was targeted 3 times in coverage. Now, I will say, one of those should have been a first down. Another one, I should say, should have been a first down. The play I have in mind was Njoku on a crosser, gets past Kendricks, he drops the ball on 3rd down. That should have been a first down pickup, but he was right place, right time for the interception off the tip from Micah Parsons. I think that his veteran leadership, his football IQ, helps guys like Overshown, especially Damone Clark, who we'll get to here in just a second. But first, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. One of their freebies the month of September, 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks. That's as easy as it gets. I got a little college football slate for you since we're still waiting on the NFL slate. Travis Hunter, I'll go more than receiving yards. He's going to get force-fed in the rivalry game against Colorado State. I think Quinn Ewers is going to light up UTSA with some big plays. Even if he only plays a half or 3 quarters, I still like them more than on the passing yards there. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. The link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, let's talk Damone Clark here. In Week 1 matchup, 4 tackles, 1 target, 0 receptions allowed. I thought he played pretty well. Damone Clark's kind of a slightly weird player in the sense that I don't know if the football IQ is where it's been needed to be in the past, but I thought he was put in good positions to not have to be like the guy at linebacker and helping out Marquise Bell. Now he gets to be the guy that gets help. So you saw something similar. He's not going to be the same level of player. Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen impact. I think that's what you're getting out of this linebacking core right now. Overall, I thought the whole unit played pretty darn well in this game. I thought they made plays. They didn't allow many plays. Your run defense was sharp, especially outside of garbage time in the 4th quarter. I think all of those things help point to this linebacking core is good in Dallas. Here are, if you value them, the PFF grades. DeMarvin Overshown, 88.6. That is elite. Eric Kendricks, 71.9. That's really good. Damone Clark, 77.1. That's really good. Nick Vigil was not good. We'll talk more about him in a little bit. 37.2. And Maurice Liufau, 62.0, as the Cowboys played 5 linebackers, a surprising amount for Vigil, which we'll come to here in a second. I think it's easier to do grading scales like you get in school. So grade the Cowboys linebackers for me in Week 1. A, B, C, D, or F in the comment section of today's show. Let's talk about Maurice Liufau here. Overall, I thought good in a very small sample size. He only played 9 snaps. He had 2 tackles in those snaps, so a good ratio there. I was a little bit surprised Dallas didn't play him more when Kendricks went down. Think that might have been a signal caller issue thing more than anything. Despite the Cowboys listing him as a starter on their Week 1 depth chart, he clearly was not. Clearly was DeMarvin Overshown. And that's okay that Liufau is a backup right now, because you have guys in front of him who can play. You saw it from Kendricks. You saw it from Overshown. You saw it from Damone Clark. I had hoped he played over Vigil more. I wonder if that comes down to you had to get a different signal caller in the green dots, and Zimmer and Gunther just trust the guy that they've known for a while in Nick Vigil, because I don't think Vigil played that great. I was surprised he played as much as he did. He is not technically on a 53-man roster. He was a game day call from the practice squad. I had thought mostly for special teams, ends up playing a big role instead of Buddy Johnson. 2 tackles in the game. I thought he had some of the missed assignments when the Browns got some runs late in the game. You're also banking on pass, so not going to ding him too much from that perspective. But hopefully Vigil doesn't have to play 25 snaps again. That's probably more than what you want out of him. For more Cowboys updates, news, rumors, live watch parties, etc., you've come to the right spot. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. That's youtube.com/@CowboysTV for all the Cowboys news, rumors, and updates that you could ever want. I do want to mention Micah Parsons here, even though he is a pass rusher. I want to mention him because he can do some linebacker stuff, and he did a little bit. Micah Parsons, I thought, was used very well by Mike Zimmer. He wasn't always lined up over the left tackle. He was moved around. He had 69 nice snaps, 2 of them in coverage. That's what I want. I want Micah Parsons moving downhill. I want him attacking, going north to south. I don't want him going east-west and dropping into coverage that much. Sometimes, yes, and it worked. The one play they did it, they tricked Watson, and he wasn't ready and ends up taking a sack on the play because they dropped Micah. That's fine. He also played, of those 69 snaps, 6 of them off ball. And a couple of them were kind of like they checked into stuff, and he drops in as almost a stand-up middle linebacker. That's fine, too. They moved him around. I still don't think we saw the full display of what Mike Zimmer is going to do. Trayvon Diggs said they called basically 3 of their plays all game. Might have been a little bit more from an up-front perspective, but the back-end coverage, they just did a lot of too high stuff. And they showed blitzes and dropped it, and Watson had no answers whatsoever. So Micah was awesome against the Browns. He had 9 pressures. That, by the way, is the next-gen stats metric. They have those available immediately, which I find super helpful for game days. He could have had several sacks in that game. He could have had 3 or 4 sacks. There were a few times that I just couldn't quite bring him down. PFF had Micah at 11 pressures. So differences of timing and whatnot there. Either way, it was the best in the NFL in week 1. He was awesome. I like the way that Mike Zimmer deployed him. All right, it's mailbag time here on the Cowboys Report. There are 2 ways to get on the show. Number 1, use hashtag Cowboys or just super chat. You can skip the line altogether if you super chat here. We've got none we haven't already hit, so that's good timing there. But get your questions in via hashtag Cowboys or super chat. Skip that line. There are bonuses if you pick the higher priced super chat tier. $20 for a shot, $50 for a beer bong, $100 for the bong, slap, and shot combination. $500 you get a custom Cowboys jersey. The most hundreds in September gets a full-sized Cowboys helmet, which I think is a pretty cool item there. That is today's super chat menu. So once producer Chris gives me the or Stone, sorry, that's my bad. I finally did it for I think it's the first time I've done it in a long time. So I'll do it again, I'm sure, at some point. My bad. So get your super chats in, get your comments in as well via hashtag Cowboys. If we do not get to your question on today's mailbag, / you couldn't watch the live mailbag, you can always hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are open, and it's better than a bunch of in-bio bots that I simply don't want to deal with. So hit me up on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Liam Tucker, the Cowboys have won their first game. Time to get the 2025 Cowboys Super Bowl champion tattoo. Go, boys. As someone who has to drop a toaster in their tub for Zeke being the week 1 starting back, which he played better than I thought, so I'm actually very happy by that. I would not advise doing that. Don't be like 3-2-1 Noel. You guys know the lore there, I'm sure. Do not advise. I still have my doubts of this team actually making a deep playoff run just with what this team is roster-wise. Cam Kramer, is this draft class on pace to be the most productive in the first year in recent Cowboys history? I'm going to go with no, simply because I don't know if you can really surpass how impactful that 2016 Cowboys draft class was. Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott were 2 of the best players in football that season at their respective positions, and it was also a quarterback, which boosts the value. Malik Collins actually had a decent rotation role for you. Anthony Brown eventually stepped up and played a kind of decent amount of snaps. He started 9 games that year and helped the Cowboys get the number 1 seed and everything. So I think this class is definitely going to be better than what we saw out of last year's class, but I don't think I'll put them on most productive in recent history. That 2016 class was really good. Even though they didn't get anything from Jalen Smith in year one, they had a lot of success from first-year impacts. Steven Goltz, do you think Aubrey would have made the 71-yard field goal with McCarthy? I don't think so. That first try wasn't going to be good from 71. Now, I think he has the leg to hit it, but it was also a little bit chilly and a little bit windy in Cleveland that day. Had that been in a dome, had that been at AT&T Stadium, I think he could have hit it. But I don't think the conditions in that game were quite right. That's a big reason why Mike didn't attempt it, I think. He also messed up by screwing up the clock. Happens. Cliff Boxmiller, how did Zeke look in week one? I think emphasizing relative to expectations, I think Zeke ran the ball pretty well in that game. I think there's still things I want to see more of out of the ground game. I crave explosive big plays. They had one explosive run from a back that was Rico Dowdle, but Zeke had a good 9-yard run. Overall, I think second half, they kind of didn't run the ball that great. They kind of went ultra-conservative in all phases to an extent. The touchdown run was nice. Great blocking up front. I said not to take away anything from Zeke, but I want to give praise to the O-line, too. It was really great blocking up front. So if you get me 10 carries, 40 yards, and a score each week, that's probably pretty good. I do worry if the efficiency drops below that, though. I think there's still room for growth overall in this Cowboys ground game. But it's also week one, so it is reasonable to expect that you can get more growth. So what is your confidence level in the Cowboys rush attack as we sit after week one? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. From Billy Bob Jean, $5 super chat. Dak could have still been the highest paid QB at 56 average per year. Why would Dallas go up to $60 million? Seems they paid way more than they needed to. Couple reasons. A, the Dak contract was different than everybody else's. Dak had like all the guys that signed, there's the threat of the franchise tag for 2 years, or they're under contract for 2 more years. Dak Prescott had unprecedented leverage because he was in such a unique spot of being months away from free agency. The real number is less about the $60 million average per year. The guaranteed money is massive. Huge amounts of guaranteed, which would not have been possible if they hadn't gone closer to that $60 million per year threshold. There was a reason why that number had kept being thrown around out there that had been speculated before, and people were like, 70 in free agency. You messed up 5 years ago and you didn't pay him the first time you could have, or 6 years ago, whatever the exact timeline was there. So it was such a unique situation, you had to give him what his agent wanted. And look, in the end, Dak kind of did a team-friendly deal because he could have said, F you, I'm going to free agency. And that would have been bad. But in the end, he wanted to be in Dallas, and they found a way to get it done at quite literally the last second possible. Ecuador man, Zeke was fully healthy, and he was meh. Come on, Tom. He was better than I thought he looked at any real point last year for noon, outside of like maybe 1 or 2 games. Much like the Dak contract stuff, I kind of just don't feel like arguing over Elliott at this point. Like, he is who he is. As like, if you're expecting prime Zeke, that was not a good game out of Elliott. If we're expecting him to be just a rotational back, that's fine. I still need to find more big plays on the ground. I don't want to be a bunch of 3-yard runs and get the occasional 9 and 6-yard run. Like, it's not great. Need to see higher success rate too. It's going to be a big deal for me. It was 30%. It's not great as well. Most of that came in the second half. I do think there's a good point being alluded to there by Ecuador man. I have always worried, and this goes back to like 2021, 22. I have worried less about Zeke in September and more about him in October and November. Because that body has taken a massive amount of hits. In college, in the NFL, the workload is significant. So he's going to be at his freshest in week 1. Does it stay fresh as the season goes on? Today's show is made possible by Rocket Money. How much do you think you're paying in subscriptions every month? The answer is probably a lot more than you actually think. Over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. I know I did. And as a phone bill I was being double charged for. It was a huge pain in the butt to handle. That's why I like Rocket Money. It is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps lower your bills, all so you can grow your savings. They will cancel the stuff you don't want anymore for you. That way you don't have to deal with annoying customer service. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has hit the total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. Steven GX, seeing Kendricks have a great game yesterday makes me glad we snagged him away from the 49ers. Don't know what your plan at linebacker would have been without him. Don't know who you're going to get. The linebacker market dried up real quick. Thank God that we bullied the Cowboys into doing that. And frankly, thank goodness for Mike Zimmer. I don't know if that happens without Zimmer kind of making it happen to an extent. Very glad the Cowboys got Kendricks. I think you needed him at linebacker. You didn't want to go in the year with Overshown, Clark, and Liufau. That probably would have been too much risk. You needed that veteran presence. Tyler Albrecht, Trey Lance for a 5th from the Packers. Who says no? I think Green Bay says no. I would actually be very surprised if the Packers traded for him. Because think about it from Green Bay's perspective. Trey Lance is going to miss a few games, right? He'll be back week 3, week 4, week 5, whatever. That is probably when they're going to be comfortable giving Trey Lance a chance to learn the playbook and play. Like, they're already worried about Malik Willis being good to go, and he got traded for at the end of August, right? And Lance is also not a long-term future. So why would the Packers give a 5th-round pick for a QB that, frankly, wasn't good in the preseason, is still a project for 1 or 2 games? That's bad asset management. They'll just try to ride it out until Love gets back. In general, do you think the Cowboys will find a trade partner, if they want to, for Trey Lance? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off in the comments of today's show. Ragnarok Howe, Kalen Carson potential. Looking at the week 1 game, I thought he did okay against Cooper. I think helps when the quarterback was bad. Watson's not good. But I do think he played well. I think that's a very promising first ever start for Kalen Carson. So I liked what I saw out of him. Secondary overall, really good. Floor to set. Be some ups and downs, I'm sure. Maybe even a tougher matchup against the Saints this week. Ravens coming down the pipeline could be challenging too. You'll get some better receivers against the Niners if he has to play in that game. But 5th-round rookie, week 1, good stuff. Noah Turner. I think it'll be a bigger threat to the Cowboys. Eagles or Lions? I would rather play the Eagles than the Lions. Thoughts? Yeah, give me Philadelphia. Especially in the regular season, because you'll probably split against Philadelphia. The Lions are going to have their Super Bowl against you. We do know that, right? I'm not trying to make that a shot against Detroit. All week, it is going to be, the refs messed up the call against the Lions. They'll make Dan Skipper the captain, whatever. Ignore it. That's a big game for the Lions to prove that they were wronged, even though the refs screwed up the call way before that with the Aiden Hutchinson trip they called on Peyton Hendershot. Never should have gotten it. It would have been game over. But I do think the Lions are a better team. I think the Lions and Niners are the 2 best teams in the NFC. For more Cowboys watch parties and live shows and videos multiple times every single day, hit that sub button, youtube.com/Cowboys TV. For the truth, JC forever, why does McCarthy always have a clock management problem? He's a football coach, and they all have it. Everyone does. They all screw it up constantly. They screw up 4th down decision-making, and they screw up clock management. I don't understand how. It happens every big game with McCarthy. There's something he screws up. And then that bungle of the clock was bad. I get that they thought the Browns celebrate there should have been a clock reset. No. Pay attention. Call timeout. You have 2 of them. You can't take them into the half. Like, we were all like, call timeout. There's a big old play clock out there. Look at it, Mike. Blows my mind. That happens every game. Every game. Straight out of Madden McCarthy management. So it's how coaches are for whatever reason. They all screw it up pretty consistently. Just dumb. From Tyler, with Overshown having one of the best, some of the best closing speed, Sam uses QB spy or some blitzing opportunities. So they did do that. They brought him on some pressures. He had a handful of pass rush snaps. He got home a couple times, and they did use him as a spy. They were very quick to adjust to that. There was the one play, I think if it was 3rd down or 4th down, but DeMarvion Overshown basically crosses 70% of the field and makes the play on Watson as a spy. That was awesome. But they did it in week 1, and they will continue to do it. Wilson Taggart, can the Cowboys trade for Amari Cooper? I'm sure he was both a good QB again. You're probably not wrong, by the way, although he did re-sign for the time being in Cleveland. But, yeah, no, you're not going to. The Browns can't punt on this year as an organization. They're too committed to winning games now. And they need Amari Cooper out there because Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore are fine, but Cooper's their number one. That 4th round pick, 5th round pick if you want to go with a meme, they get for him, is they going to justify not being a good enough passing offense? Like you need to get Amari going more. Browns were in hell on offense. Watson was a big factor in that. The O-line wasn't great, but he also held the ball way too long. I do think Amari misses Dallas. In one of his interviews, he said "we" a couple times talking about the Cowboys, by the way. I don't know if you guys caught that this week. He misses it. But the Cowboys let it get personal. Happens. Name a player, realistic, you can't get Mahomes, sorry, that you want to trade for. Let me know in the comments section of today's video. What player would you love to go out and get? Josephian Torres. Remember, Lipke was utilized heavily in the North Dakota State passing game. Running routes, tight end wouldn't be too far of a stretch for him. It's true. He was also not really a fullback in North Dakota State. He was kind of like H-back, running back more than anything. So very good point there, Joseph. Would not be surprised if he gets real tight end reps again if Ferguson misses this game against the Saints. Jay Gonzo 11. Name one running back you would trade for before the deadline. Still call about Israel Abanikanda. I still want juice. Like, that's what I'm craving. Craving explosive plays. Abanikanda stands out to me, who made the Jets roster, would be probably pretty cheap. Kind of worried that Damian Pierce might be bad, by the way. Mixon ran the ball way better than Pierce did all last year. Huge red flag of what Mixon is at this point in his career. Beyond that, you can call about Khalil Herbert. Bears' offense was bad week 1. Might not be too much to read from that, but I call about Herbert. I think all those things make sense. So I think running back area I will pursue if things don't get a little bit more explosive moving forward. Today's Super Chat menu, $20 for a shot, $50 for a beer bong, $100 for a bong, slap, and shot, $500 for a custom Cowboys jersey. Most hundreds in September gets you a Cowboys helmet. I don't know if the Bears are going to trade Roschon or if the Raiders would trade Zamir White. Raiders offense, by the way, going to be a long year for my boy Mitch. Going to be a very long year, frankly. He will not get to do this question very often. One-word reaction to the Cowboys' win against the Browns. I want to turn that fan on me a little bit more. Got warmer as the day went on for being pretty cold this morning, and there you go. Appreciate it. There we go. One-word reaction. Impressed. Good. Also solid answers there. Let's get another. I don't mind cheating on this one today. It's fine. I put this on Twitter, and everyone cheated too. Of like, Deshaun Watson is bad, and etc. Bricked. Funny. Successful. Dominant. Okay. Expected. Okay. One I saw today on Twitter was like, get back to me in January. Fine. It's fine. Solid. Bandit says lucky. I don't know if they were that lucky in that game. I think they were just the better team, especially on defense. Great. Stale. I don't know about stale. I enjoyed it. Fluent. Woo. Massage. Nice. Business needed. Defense. Damn. Defense. Finally. Okay. 2 fasts in a row. all works too. Overshown was fast. He added weight, couldn't tell. In a good way. In a good way. TB12, Overshown, Zimmer, impressive. My buddy John calls him Invader Zim. I don't know if you're old enough for that one, but you're not. You're too young. Tackling was good. That's actually a really good point. I should have mentioned it on the show today, Vinny. They didn't miss many tackles out there. They wrapped him up and brought him down. And for a team that didn't do much in the preseason, that's always a really good sign. Virgil played a lot, or Vigil. I don't think he's going to play a lot in real games. And Overshown out-snapped Liufau. So, he's your starter. I don't care who gets the first snap, but if you're playing 4 times the snaps, okay, we know who the starter is. It's pretty clear. Relentless, hard-hitting, betting on the over shown. I like that. That's fun. Keep the one-word reactions coming to the Cowboys' Week 1 win over the Browns. We're about to preview the Cowboys' Week 2 matchup against the New Orleans Saints. We need your help to ensure a win. We have the data to prove it. The more likes we get, the more likely it is that the Dallas Cowboys beat the New Orleans Saints. So like today's video more than any other video you've liked before. The Cowboys are back at home for the season opening game at AT&T Stadium out in Arlington, Texas. They are a 6.5-point favorite against the New Orleans Saints, who played one of the best games in all of Week 1. Also might just be that Carolina's bad. We'll talk about that here more in depth in a second. 45.5 is the over-under as of filming this. It might ebb and flow a little bit there. There's some injury question marks we'll get to as part of today's show as well. But I thought the Cowboys and the Saints too, going back and watching, both those teams, I should say, had a very strong performance. Cowboys 5th in scoring offense now, tied for 7th in defense. Saints 1 and tied for 2nd. Cowboys were road underdogs against the Cleveland Browns. What'd they do? Went out and manhandled them. That game was over basically at halftime. Browns didn't have a 10% win probability after the 2.5-minute mark of the first half. They dominated. So did the Saints. 47-10. He had 47-10 and 200 passing yards from Derek Carr, who was very good in that game, by the way. Almost got the rare more touchdowns than incompletions in that matchup. This might just be a bad Panthers team. The defense also lost Derek Brown. Carolina's in for a really, really rough year. Very impressed by how good the Saints looked in Week 1. But this is a much tougher test for the Saints against a actually good team in the Cowboys versus the Carolina Panthers. Some injuries to watch I want to mention here. John Stevens Jr. has the hamstring injury. TBD if he'll be back. Jake Ferguson's going to be a real questionable, if not a doubtful. If this were a playoff game, he could probably play through the sprained MCL and the bone bruise in Week 2. Maybe that's not a path you want to actually pursue. A.T. Perry has a hand injury. Worth monitoring is Marshawn Lattimore. Hamstring injury that he suffered in that game. Left, did not return. Saints have called it minor. It's also Week 2. And they need him against CeeDee Lamb. But that is one to monitor with just how effective and if he can even play going forward. Foster Moreau had a head injury, so TBD on his availability. We'll know more as the week goes along. Before we get into some keys to victory, we're bringing it back. I want you guys to type in F Trace in the comments. Trace is our Saints host. Good guy, but not this week. He sucks. Spam F Trace for me in the comments section of today's show. The most comments gets a free raffle entry into our giveaway this Sunday. So if the ad comes on YouTube, take advantage and go do it. Let's talk keys to victory here. Number 1, pressure Derek Carr. The Cowboys, this was the key to victory last week. Pressure Deshaun Watson. It worked in spades. It might not be as effective this week, but it certainly is worth monitoring in terms of the impact for Derek Carr. Derek Carr, when he has time, is a pretty solid quarterback. And he makes throws, he makes plays. I still have a ton of PTSD over the flag-filled game that against the Raiders, it was just underthrown deep ball after underthrown deep ball. That pissed me off to no end. I swear to God, if it happens again, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. But you can pressure him. Guess what the Panthers didn't do in week 1? They pressured him 3 times the entire game. That was it. They didn't get after him at all. He was 2 of 2 under pressure, had a bomb on a touchdown throw to Rashid Shaheed on a busted coverage by Carolina. He did take 1 sack, though. Now, compare that to his more valuable sample size numbers back in 2023. 49% completion rate under pressure, 877 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a 17.1% sack rate. He actually took more sacks when blitzed than just when under pressure. I think you'll see Mike Zimmer dial up some blitz packages there. Derek Carr tends to struggle, like a lot of quarterbacks do, to be fair, when you can disguise your stuff and throw stuff at him post-snap. I think you will see something very similar come from Mike Zimmer's game plan in week 2 from what you saw this week. Maybe a little bit even more disguises, more pressure packages. I think they will try to get after him as best as possible. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. I love Prize Picks. The biggest reason, it's just you against the numbers. It's not a daily fantasy app where you have to handle, being in the top 2% to win anything. You just got to beat the math. More or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch your winnings roll in. It is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And they're doing some fun features, some deals, if you will, throughout the month of September, including Caleb Williams. Half a passing yard is 1 win. That's one of the 2 you need. It truly is a freebie. I'll take some college football ones before we get to the true NFL slate, or true football slate. Travis Hunter, 91.5 receiving yards. Quinn Ewers, 255.5 passing yards for the collegiate matchup. Texas is going to blow him out of the water, but I think Ewers will hit some big deep balls in that one. Hunter will be fed against Colorado State. So if you haven't already, folks, download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to get that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Key to victory number 2, better third down play. This, I think, was one of the biggest areas where your offense struggled. And the Cowboys' offense in general has leaned pretty damn heavily on third downs as how they move the ball. It's probably more than you'd like to have overall. In week 1, before Monday Night Football, Dak and the Cowboys' offense were bad on third downs. They simply didn't convert enough of them. They had minus 5.95 expected points added per play. That was 25th out of the 30 qualifying quarterbacks on the Running Backs Don't Matter site. They just weren't good enough on third downs. From an efficiency perspective, they were 4 of 14. That's a bad third down game. Browns were worse, but they were not very good. Last year, the Cowboys and Dak Prescott were the best third down offense in football, plus .433 EPA per play. Third and Dak is the reason why they moved the ball on offense, period, last year. You need more of that. It's tough to win games when you get 14 third downs and you only get 4 of them. Week 1 was the exception. Got to be better in week 2. So do you think the offense will improve in the second week of the season? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments of today's video. One way to get better on offense, especially given the uncertain at best status of Jake Ferguson, let's feed CeeDee Lamb. He was involved in week 1, 5 catches, 61 yards, 3 carries, 25 yards. He was also targeted in total 10 times, only caught half of those. That's a low figure for the Dak and Lamb connection. Some rust, I think, from both players, frankly. Maybe some connection issues because they didn't do anything really in training camp. Happens. The frustrating part of, the holdout that you had there probably impacted week 1 a little bit. It's about what the Jones boys might try to say. Force feed CeeDee Lamb. Cooks had 7 targets. Overall was pretty solid. Fergie had 5. Up those touches. CeeDee Lamb should get 15 touches a game. Targets, if you want to include carries too. I like getting involved on the ground. I like that a lot, actually, for Lamb. But he should have 7-8 catches every game at minimum. So you want to move the ball better on offense? Get Lamb going. The Browns defense is better than the Saints defense. The Saints defense is good. I don't want to ignore that part, but you got to get CeeDee Lamb going. When there's Cowboys news, folks, we have you covered. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button. YouTube.com/CowboysTV. Another big key to victory, stop the run. I would bet the Saints try to establish the run a lot more than the Browns ever really tried to do, which I was a little bit surprised by, but I digress. Defense held up pretty well. Your run defense was very good in week 1, even better than the raw numbers suggest. A lot of that was garbage time stuff. The Saints ran the ball super well against the Panthers. Alvin Kamara, 15 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Jamal Williams, a bit more garbage time reps there. Not nearly as impactful, but he's a powerful runner. 11 carries, 38 yards, and a score. Taysom Hill, the tight end, got plenty of touches. 5 carries, 35 yards. Derek Carr scrambled for 13 yards. Jordan Mims, garbage time, 4 carries, 11 yards. As a team, even with the garbage time touches, 37 carries, 180 yards, and almost 5 yards per carry. It's a really good ground game effort out of New Orleans. Now, again, Panthers are a bad team. You have to acknowledge that. It'll be tougher on New Orleans. But if they can, remember that Jordan Lewis, Alvin Kamara game a couple years ago? Do that again, and good things will probably happen. Pick the score of Cowboys against the Saints for me in the comments of today's show. What do you think that final score will end up being? We'll get to mine at the end of today's show. Number 5, key to victory, no letdown game. You had it kind of last year against the Cardinals. Remember that? You just kind of laid an egg and had some extenuating circumstances, sure, but can't have that. Look, pretty much every team has a letdown game at some point. There are upsets in football any given Sunday, right? Just don't let it come in week 2. We have seen this Cowboys team over the last 20-something years, 30-something years almost, do it before. They get a little bit high on their own success. And they start thinking their stuff don't stink, and they have a letdown game, and it's their wake-up call, and they kind of rally a little bit there, but they cannot get overconfident. I'm sure that McCarthy can utilize that blowout win by the Saints to help them a little. Like, the Saints are a good team. Don't get high off your success. Stay focused and know that it's a long season. Got to win this one to set yourself up for the most success later on this season. So my score prediction. I think the Cowboys win this one, and I think they cover. I think a bit of a higher scoring affair, too. Give me the Cowboys 31-20 over the Saints in week 2 of the NFL season. I want you guys to grade the Cowboys against the Browns for me. A, B, C, D, or F, the final chance to vote before we sign off on today's show. A, B, C, D, or F, 47% voting A, 49% voting B, 3% voted C, kind of surprised by that one. 1% voting D or F. No complaints about an A or a B, by the way. We will be live, A, on Thursday for our next live show, but also for the Cowboys-Saints game. 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time is when our live show will start. Hour and a half before kickoff. Make sure you guys tune in. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV.